Welcome back, 101. Speaking of welcome back, I had a little joke saved up for it about a boomerang. Sadly, I can't seem to remember it, but don't worry, I'm sure it'll come back to me. Okay, in all seriousness, I hope you are taking care of yourselves. I hope you followed my advice over spring break, what little you had, and were able to either stay out of trouble or not get caught on. Hopefully, bail was cheap if none of those worked either. Regardless, I do hope that you are all well, and I do hope that you are all practicing some form of safe social distancing, especially for those of us with people in our lives who have compromised immune systems. We appreciate you, so thank you. Um, on lighter notes, class is going to be a little different these days. Um, Clearly, we're not going to be in the same horrid computer room, so that's a positive. Negatives, we won't get to do this face to face anymore, which, as we've noted in some of our readings, is the very reason why you elected to do that in the first place. Such is life, so we roll with it. As such, we should probably talk a little bit about expectation and grades going forward. If you look through the remainder of the year, you'll see that one of the papers has been eliminated. We've lost an entire week. I don't intend to try to squeeze everything into now a hyper shortened semester. That just seems absurd and ridiculous. If we can focus in and do quality, then quantity is not always necessary. So, to that end, we have a rhetorical analysis, which is what we're going to be building this coming 2 weeks or so. And you have your last paper, which is an argument from observation. We'll detail more about that the closer we get to that. For now, your rhetorical analysis, we're going to do basically what you did in a group with an ad. Instead, we're going to take something of your own choice, an article of some sort, and run it through the same rhetorical ringer that you did with your presentations. That's the next big assignment that's coming down the road. As far as attendance goes, how are we going to do that, right? How do you really know if checking in or whatever? Those are mainly handled through assignment points, and that'll be what the assignment points now become, is sort of a regular attendance check, right? Here's this, read it, and then answer some of these questions or look at some of these issues and see what you think. It won't always be a bunch of questions. Some of them might just be one, or hey, do this, after you've read this. Those sorts of things are going to be kind of how we gauge whether or not you are participating. Obviously, they're also for points, so it's to your advantage to do them in either case. As far as due dates go, I try to make them very clear on each of the assignments. This coming week, you actually have 3 separate due dates, beginning with one reading from Zinsser, another reading from Graph, and then sort of a journal comparison at the end of the week. So let's take a look at those now.
Was us. This has sadly bled in to become the new us, and here is our return to whatever normalcy looks like these days. So, you've got 3 assignments this week, as I mentioned, with 3 separate due dates. It won't always be like that, but it will be incumbent upon you to check to make sure it's not like that. In other words, check. This week there are 3, and I've staggered them in such a way for a reason. What we're doing is building the skill set that you need in order to be able to ask questions of a source in order to write your own rhetorical analysis, which we deal with in a little more depth next week. So, but first, this week, your first assignment that's due is Zinsser. Let's take a look at Zinsser together. William Zinsser's College Pressures is an argument about the value of a liberal arts education. Right? Why are you doing this, and why are you doing this at the school that you've chosen? I've designed a little PowerPoint here that helps you rhetorically analyze his argument. It's full of a series of questions. They're written on there, and there's audio for each slide as well to help sort of explain what the question might be asking. Please number your responses, but you do not have to include the question. Lastly, it goes without saying, please do not default to vague pronouns that assume a referent in the question or in the essay, but rather read as complete, full thoughts. Concise is fine where possible, but the answer should be clear as to what was specifically being discussed. The reason I make you do that is because single greatest fault, or one of the single greatest faults of academic writing, is this vague reference skill where you're assuming that your audience has read the same article or is assuming the author or assuming that gets you into problems, right? So I'm forcing you to practice it here. Be clear, be direct, and be concise. Okay, the kinds of questions I ask you about Zinsser's argument are the kinds of questions that you're going to want to ask of the argument you choose for analysis next week. These will be true when you complete the graph assignment as well. Begin examining the questions that I'm asking as much as the response so that you can transfer such inquiry into an argument of your own choice, right? So yes, I'm asking you to evaluate Zinsser's idea about liberal arts, but just as important is your meta-awareness of the kinds of questions that I'm asking in order to rhetorically analyze his argument, right? Those kinds of questions are the same kinds of questions that you can ask of any argument in order to come up with some sort of comprehensive analysis. And you'll have to. So pay attention to both. Let's take a look back then at the next assignment. Next assignment is graph, and I'm going to ask you to do the very same thing. I've chosen 2 articles based around that subject which interests me, education and the profession of. You might choose, when it's your chance, anything, right? You could choose something along the lines of the social issue that helped guide you to your selection of your visual analysis. But for now, we're dealing with graph and education. Give his article a read, answer the close reading questions in a Word document, and the same rules that applied to Zinsser apply to graph. Clear and concise, but not vague. Right? Okay, then let's look at what you have for the end of the week. For the end of the week, I'm going to ask you to make a comparison of the 2, right? It's your first effort at really composing long form or mini long form, it's a journal, a rhetorical analysis. So here are some instructions, right? I think that you want to be careful about working in a binary. By that I mean the things that you discuss about Gerald Graff or William Zinsser may not necessarily oppose each other. One's not about the same exact point, right? It's not a binary system, not for and against, but rather they're having a conversation that is shared, right? To some degree, some of the conversation that they're having is a shared one, right? So rather than deal with a binary system, consider how each makes their contribution effective, right? Who and where is one ineffective, and perhaps why? When is it particularly strong, right? Then you can make an assessment as to the stronger writer or argument. The argument is not necessarily a binary one, it's rather who makes the stronger case. To do or answer that, you have to be able to rhetorically analyze it. And then I threw you a little curveball. It's a little one. How might Postman's argument that we read way back when, and you can review it here if you need to, virtual students, digital classroom, be reflective regarding the effectiveness of any one strategy? That was his point. How does that fit in this conversation? That's kind of a going away parting shot in your journal, right? Maybe the last part that would be in your entry. Okay, hopefully that catches you up on all of that. That gets you through week 11 and all 3 assignments. Again, 3 different due dates. Please note what they are. Week 12, we'll be headed into an analysis of your own source, and we'll talk more about that at length. As you can see here, it's not ready to be released yet. We want quality over quantity, not just a massive workload dump, but rather an engagement with what we've been given. And we'll deal with it in the best way possible. If you have questions, well, I'll tell you how to get those answered next.
Okay, so you've seen each of the assignments you have for the week, and you can see that the other weeks will be releasing in a timely way so that you can get on some of those early if necessary. I can't release them all at once, otherwise we all know everybody would just jam through everything and lump it onto my plate at once, and that's not the idea here. Instead, we're going to slow down and give quality over quantity. All right, let's close with any questions that you have or issues that you have. Please, let's start with email first. Email will be the surest way to get a hold of me, and then we can move from there if you need still other kinds of resource or help, whether it's Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. We can do that. Even if it's just the old-fashioned, we pick up a phone and make a phone call. But for now, if you need help or have a question or have an issue that was outstanding from the past before we took this long break, email me. I'll be sure to read your email and get back to you. And I guess that's about it. If there's any parting advice I could leave you with, it would be this. Currently, I would avoid eating sushi. Yeah, it's a little fishy. You're welcome. See you next week.